Hello, everybody, and welcome to the F Show. I hope that we're not struggling too much with our internet, with load shedding, with being from different parts of the world. But I have three amazing guests with me today. We have Moniza, who is all the way in Pakistan, Nokuthula, who is right here with me in South Africa, and Sherilyn Naidu, who's sitting in the USA. Now, today's wonderful opportunity to chat is really to celebrate my birthday. I turned 60 yesterday on the 6th of July, and our friends around the world were saying, well, how are we going to be part of that? I thought the best way to celebrate, precisely because in your case, Nokuthula, you are talking about a wonderful tea party. And yes, we're going to put your clip on and you're going to talk to us about it. And then, Sherilyn, you are talking about your life, your work, your family, and the fact that you are actually from South Africa, which I think is a wonderful, huge celebration, and therefore was definitely wonderful to have you with us as part of the celebration. And our dearest, wonderful friend and icon, Moniza Hashmi, who has a conversation with her father. And she will tell you about the amazing person her father was, Faiz Ahmed Faiz, who is very closely related to us in South Africa. So this tonight is a celebration of all of you as writers, as storytellers, as authors, but also with the extension into. So I'm going to start with you, Nokuthula. Welcome, dear. Justine, please show us the clip, and then Nokuthula, feel free to talk to us and to share a reading.
Okay, thank you, everybody. And for those, happy birthday. Happy 60th, and I was so fortunate to actually have some cake with you yesterday, which was just absolutely delightful. And may you be blessed with many, many more years. And of course, you and I have collaborated in the past, making children's content, specifically with Mandela, the very first Nelson Mandela Children's Film Festival. We worked closely together and we had such fun just pioneering children's content. And of course, as you have mentioned, my name is Nokuthula Masibu-Msimang, and I've been a writer of mostly children's historical books. And my latest one is the one that you see on the screen, titled Soweto Tea Party. So I launched two books this year. It was the Soweto Tea Party, as well as an adult historical novel, The Daughters of Nandi. But I will be reading a little bit from the Soweto Tea Party, which is really autobiographical, because I wrote about a period in the 70s and 80s when my father, who was a freedom fighter, Fanyana Mazibuko, he was a science and math teacher, was under house arrest. So he'd just been released from prison and he was under house arrest, you know. And of course, we have just come out of a lockdown, you know, which was necessary for our own safety, you know. But also it kind of was a little bit triggering for me because of that period in the 70s and 80s when we had, you know, I think more than 1,000 days of lockdown. So anyway, the story really is about how my father would, you know, tell us stories about freedom and play us music and use the power of the imagination just to keep us hopeful as children, you know, and just to keep us not being scared. So I'll read a little bit from the book, and if there are any young children who are, you know, who are not sleeping yet, they can come a little closer and just hear a little bit from the Soweto Tea Party. So here we go. So hello, my name is Princess. I live in Soweto, South Africa. This is my house, number 7911. I live with Baba, Mama, and my two noisy brothers, Khosi and Lefate, and our noisy dog, Dombolo. So there is the house there, and an illustration of my father under house arrest. And Samantha Van Riet, the illustrator, I think did a marvelous job. Baba is under house arrest. That means he's not allowed to leave our house and nobody is allowed to visit. Baba says there's a war on because the government keeps the best of everything for white people only. In Soweto, our houses are small and our schools are old and cracked. So there is Baba there under house arrest. It's still early. Mama gives me a hug and a kiss and rushes off to her job as a nurse at Pimville Clinic. I'm scared. There are many army trucks driving up and down our street. Baba tries to cheer me up. He says, Princess, you are the kindest, smartest, most beautiful girl in Soweto. You have a twinkle in your eye and the sun shines when you smile. Baba puts on Mama Miriam Makeba's song, Malaika, Nagupenda Malaika, da-dum, dum. Malaika, Nagupenda Malaika. With the music on, I can't hear the soldiers' trucks outside. I fall into Baba's arms and say, Baba, let's have a tea party. Baba swings me around and around. That's a wonderful idea, Princess. Malaika, Nagupenda Malaika. The soldiers outside are not invited to our tea party. And there is Baba and Princess. And the rest of the story, it's the imaginary tea party. And one of the guests is our beloved Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, and a whole lot of very well-known South African icons come to the tea party. So it's also a way of teaching children about our history, celebrating our icons like Nelson Mandela, and and really just celebrating the power of the imagination in surviving really traumatic situations. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. I can read some more if you'd like. But yeah, there was just me reading a snippet of the Soweto Tea Party.
Thank you so much. We can come back to another reading. Let's go to Moniza from Pakistan. Another person who I think Moniza and I know each other for decades, also in the children's world, but way beyond that too. Welcome, my dearest friend, Moniza.
Thank you. Thank you, and I hope you can all hear me. And salam alaikum from Pakistan. It is a little late here, so if I feel that so thank you, Firdaus, my dearest. Thank you for getting me and for persuading me to be here at this time when I should be fast asleep in bed. Right. So what we are going to talk, I was fascinated by your book, my dear friend, just now. My book is again also about my father. So I think that's a very interesting situation. My book, was published this year. It's called Conversations with My Father. And my father, as you can see on the screen, and my father, and it says at the bottom that you may not be able to read, 40 years on, a daughter responds. Now, this is a very interesting book in the sense that my dad wrote letters to me when he was in jail. He was a person who was imprisoned for his ideas and for speaking out and for a supposed conspiracy case that never actually happened, but he was accused of it. So he spent 5 years, 4.5 years in jail, and I was growing up. I was 4 years old, 4.5 years old when he went to jail, and about 9 when he came out. After that, over the years, he was constantly writing poetry, working for human rights, being a journalist, and speaking his mind, and therefore never actually very popular with the people, as we call them, the establishment that runs the country. And I'm sure you, my friend in South Africa, would understand that.
Mhm.
In the year 1977 onwards, we had a military dictatorship here for 11 years. And my dad, after a year or so after, so he went into self-exile and he went away for about 7, 8, 9 years. And of course, he traveled across. He was based in Beirut at that time. He joined, I would say that joined, he sympathized and then later joined, in a manner of speaking, the Palestinian organization, the Palestinian struggle. He became became a personal friend of Mr. Yasser Arafat, and he lived in Beirut. And he lived in Beirut on those terrible days when the first Intifada happened. And then, of course, he had to escape from there. And he actually left in the boot of a car. And he was going from country to country, which obviously took a toll on his health, etc. And then he came back in 1984 and he died. Now, my father, we are two sisters. And so he wrote me letters throughout those years. Of course, he wrote to me as a child as well, but those letters are not the letters I'm talking about. But the letters, so it came to me, and I'll try and make this short. It came to me as I'm growing older now and a senior citizen. It came to me that these letters, because Faiz is a poet who's loved, respected, and absolutely revered by millions across the world. He has been poetry has been translated into several languages. And South Africa is where also a couple of his poems he wrote. It's also included in my book. It's called Ajadi. I was told, I have visited South Africa many times for conferences and also to see my friend Pitos. And I have met people there who have told me that they would recite his poems when they were facing the apartheid and when they were facing those terrible days and so on and so forth. So there was a connection, a very close connection with South Africa also. And the poem was used, yeah, that's right, and so on and so forth. So then I started thinking, and some of my friends told me that these letters are showing a profile of a man who people respect and know as a poet, as a journalist, as a human rights activist, as a philosopher. What they don't know about him is that he was also a father. And it is only you who can show that side, that profile of this great man. And it is your, and they really brought it home to me that it became my moral duty that I needed to project, I needed to show the world the face of a father, this great man who is, I mean, you can literally walk the streets of Pakistan, anywhere of Pakistan, and just say his name and somebody will stop and say, oh, Faiz, oh. I mean, that's his profile. So I started thinking about it and I said, okay, these letters. So therefore, this book that we've just seen, Conversations with My Father, is actually, it began with just, I thought I just published the letters. But then my son, and this is all documented, it's a very interesting book, even if I say so myself, I'm sorry. My younger son said to me, but this is boring. I said, excuse me? He said, you know, this is boring. And then I said to myself, he has a point. And then I started, I mean, I can only, unfortunately, I hope nobody kills me. I can only bless COVID for the fact that I was months at home doing nothing. And I started thinking about the genre of this book. What is this book going to be? And then I said to myself, all those years when this man, this great man, had great things to do and was away from home, away from me, away from the family. So there are so many things in my heart. So much happened in my life that I couldn't tell him because he was never there. So why not use this opportunity to write him letters now, describing my life after he left? and he's been dead now almost 35 years. And my life has had a lot of ups and downs, many highs, not lows, I would say, but certainly some lows. So I decided to make this into a conversation with my dad, telling him about my life as it has passed with his, when he was absent, and including in it letters that he wrote to me. And it's a very interesting, should I say, they are in harmony. My letters to him, if you want to call it that, are in harmony with the letters that he has written to me. And people who have read this book have been, they say, and I'm really using their words, so moved by the fact that here is a daughter, and I am a senior citizen, I'm in my 70s, writing to her father, telling him all about what happened in her life. And of course, one of the things that happened after he left was that I started tracing his footsteps. I went to Palestine. I went to Kashmir. I went to Syria. I went to Iraq. I went to all those places that he had visited, stood in the places that he had stood, and told him what I was feeling in this book, told him what I was feeling. So this is, I would say this is an interesting book. So it's called Conversations with My Father, but Conversations Now. It includes some letters by him, and I'd like to, with your permission, Firdaus, I'd like to read just one excerpt from this book, from these letters. And the very interesting thing, and these letters were written to me in the Urdu language, which is our language. But I have written back to him in English because English is my mother tongue. My mother was British. She married my father, and this is wonderful. So it's a very interesting mixture of both languages. But because his letters were written in Urdu, I have also had them translated, obviously. So anybody who wants to read the English version can read it straight through, but can also see how it's written. So let me share this advice. I mean, when I got this letter, the letter was written in 1979. When this was the years when he was in exile. He writes it from Moscow. My father was also a recipient of the Lenin Peace Prize in the year 1962, which is, and that is also described in this book. I was 16 years old, was I? Yeah, 16 years old. My goodness, what an age ago. I was 16 years old at that time, and I was sitting he was recovering from a heart attack. He was not well, he was just lying outside. It was, I think it was the fall, so it's a good season. And I remember the phone ringing, and these were those black phones, the big ones with the dials. And the phone rang, and he picked up, my mother was standing next to me, and I was there as well, messing around or something. And he picked up the phone. This is all described in the book. He picked up the phone, and I looked at his face, and suddenly he not exactly went white, but he sort of completely went, we call it, sort of, there was a eerie silence. And my mother said, Faz, what is wrong? And he just looked at her. I can never forget that face. He looked at her and she said, is it the Nobel Prize? And he said, no, this is something bigger than that. And he had just been told that he'd got the Lenin Peace Prize. And he was astounded by that, astounded. And that's a description, and there are photographs of this and so on and so forth. And then I read, later on, I explored how many wonderful people have got the Lenin Peace Prize. Picasso is one of them, and Nkrumah is one of them, Indira Gandhi is one of them. I mean, when you look at that list and you realize that your father was placed as high as that in the world. So, but of course, that prize at that time, unfortunately, was certainly looked down upon, and he was told, don't come back to Pakistan. So anyway, so this is a letter that he wrote to me from Moscow, and allow me to just read this. I was having problems in the martial law in Pakistan television. I was in a state broadcaster. I was also Fez's daughter. I was constantly being harassed, constantly being watched, constantly being warned. My promotions were not happening. I was persona non grata, but being my mother's daughter as well, I was a fighter. And I continued to fight. And at the end of my profession, at the age of 60, I retired as high as it can go as the director of programs. And I have been still the first woman who got there. Anyway, so I must have complained to him as always, I suppose. And then he advises me, the best thing to do when faced by a problem is to try and solve the issue and simultaneously switch off. Whatever will be, will be. There's no point in fretting and cribbing over it. My own prescription is the one that I am using in Beirut, which is that when the sound of falling bombs can be heard overhead, I muffle myself up in bedclothes, turn aside and go to sleep. My friends often ask me how I manage to sleep amongst all that noise. I tell them that if one concentrates on the mind, that is, works up one's willpower and makes up one's mind to do something, success is bound to be around the corner. So I'm telling you, these days will pass. Now, when I look at this advice, and I think that is probably how, and this is the picture that I'd like to show you of my dad and myself. This is, can you see that? I think so. Yeah. This is one of my prized possessions that I have. Very few photographs with my father that I have. And of course, some people say that that I was his favorite. If I say that, my sister will kill me. But I think a lot of people, and this is also one photograph that I absolutely, oops, if I can show you, absolutely adore. That's me at the age of 4 in his lap. So, so this is the book, Conversations with My Father. And this book is available on Amazon.com if anybody would like to buy it. If you're in UK, it's available on Waterstone online. And I am now proceeding at the end of August for a book launch in the UK and in 6 or 7 different countries in Europe. Because Fez is so popular. And the minute I sort of made up my mind, wrote, on my embassies have been very kind. All the embassies of France, Switzerland, Germany, Italy, Brussels in Belgium, they've all come forward and they're going to be hosting me. So because the minute you say Fez, everybody stands up. So this is the book. And I hope that I would get a chance to hopefully send it to you, Firdaus, if I can find somebody in who's traveling to South Africa to send it to you. And thank you so much for inviting me. I think I've said my piece.
That was so special. And I think the celebration is in that relationship and in the relationship that we share as we all are on this platform today. I want to come to share school together, at high school together, and she has written a wonderful memoir, which I would like her to talk about. We do have a cover of the book. Welcome, Cheryl. Please introduce yourself and tell us about your book, which I think also will relate to the 2 daughters that you have, which is fantastic. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think I'm going to start by letting you know how I got inspired to write this book. So coming to the United States was one of my journeys that I felt I needed to record because my family is in South Africa. Every one of my family, my friends is in South Africa. And I was like inspired by what my life has become here in the United States and how my grandchildren will never know how I enjoyed my life in South Africa. So that's how come I started to write the book called Persistent Reflections. So if you can look at the cover, it has a map of South Africa and then a reflection of the United States at the bottom of that book, of the cover. So my book is actually about an emotional journey across thousands of miles, and it centers around my South African family, and I share personal and relatable experiences about my family. My story is about how my family got to South Africa, where we actually landed, what my experiences were, my devastation, my self-discovery. It starts from the early life and it moves on to my adolescence, my young teens, my getting married, and it eventually ends up in the United States. So I think my book is more of a personal experience and how I actually moved from my family and coming to the United States, and it was just myself and my ex-husband and my daughter. So when we got to the United States, it was like, you know, when you relocate and you go to a different country, people think that they get the impression that it's really fantastic. You know, it's a great journey. There's no struggles. You just kind of go there and you start living your life. It is nothing like that. It is absolutely, you struggle a lot because you don't know anyone. There's no support group, right? Where I come from South Africa, we have family. We lived, because of apartheid and how we lived, we were segregated. So you knew your neighbor, your family was there, that was your community. When I got to the United States, I was shocked. It was like a totally different environment for me. You know what I mean? And here I am trying to adjust to this type of lifestyle that I never imagined. Okay, so when you get here, you're like, okay, where do I live? What is a good city to live in? Because remember, the United States is huge. I mean, it has so many states and cities compared to South Africa. South Africa, you have Cape Town, Durban, Orange Free State, and you'll obviously have family members or people that can advise you, you know what I mean? Oh, go here, do this. In the United States, we were on our own. But I think that helped me to focus on myself because I studied, I worked on getting educated. It was quality time with my girls, my daughters. My oldest daughter was born in South Africa and my youngest was born in the United States. So I have 2 daughters and I have 2 grandkids who inspired me to write this book. As you all know, the people that know me, when I actually started writing this book, I had quite a few family members that were still alive, but last year I lost most of my family members. So right now it's just me, and I'm very grateful that I had this opportunity to write this book because it tells about my family, my grandparents, my father, I talk about this in my book because my father and I had different perspectives, right? Okay. I was more pro-ANC and he was more pro-government, right? And as a young child, and I talk about that in my book, I talk a lot about how we had differences of opinions, but yet we could actually sit at the same table and have dinner and have those different opinions, right? Which is something that I actually had to learn, because as I was growing up as a kid, your father is your pillar, he's the man of the house. He's the one that actually rules. He's just everything that you've ever wanted, right? Because he's your father. And as you get older, you realize that you really are not liking what he's telling you. You're not agreeing with any of that, but you're so young, and you have to try and adjust and accept these emotions that you're going through. You know what I mean? You can have a difference of opinion, but you can't disrespect your father. You know what I mean? So those emotions are things that I talk about in here, because as adults, we understand that we respect our elders, but when you're growing up, it's kind of difficult, because as you know, we all think we're right when we're so young and infallible. You know, this is my opinion. I like this is what it should be, and this is how it should be. But as you grow older, you try to actually accommodate people and their beliefs and their views. You know what I mean? So in this book, I talk about how my dad and I had difference of opinions, but yes, we were able to live in the same house. The same goes for my daughters, right? I talk about how my daughters, being a South African mother and having American ideas, they had to abide by my household, because those were my ideas. Whether they fit in with American kids, I wasn't really too concerned about that, right? It was what was in my household. And so I talk about how it was difficult for me and my kids, my daughters, to actually agree on certain things. I mean, you know, I talk about a situation where we had to go for counseling. My daughters and I, my youngest daughter and I, went for counseling because we were just not getting along. I mean, I wanted her to be a South African child, which meant that these were the rules. And she wanted to be an American child because she needed to fit in at school, right? So then we went to a psychologist, and the lady told me, she's like, you got to pick your battles. You can't expect the room to be clean. You can't expect the dishes to be done. You can't expect the homework to be done. You have to overlook some things. I mean, and for my sanity and her sanity, we came to an agreement that, okay, on the weekend, you will clean your room and your bathroom. During the week, close the door, because I can't see all of that. I mean, we have our rooms and our house cleaned every day. You know what I mean? That's where I come from. So it was like, I just had to make sure that, you know what, I understood where she was coming from. So it's like a lot of emotional understanding between your kids, your life, your change of life. I mean, I lived in South Africa for 30 some odd years. I'm living in the United States for 25 years. And I still miss home. I miss a lot of things. I mean, I just come back for 2.5 months. I was there. I just came back like 3 weeks ago. And I am so missing home. I'm ready to like relocate and come back to South Africa. That's how much I miss home. You know, they say that you go and you actually relocate somewhere like in the States, and you know, it's a better life for your kids, because that's what we thought, right? But when you look at the quality of the life, I still think with load shedding and whatever's going on, I still believe that there's more quality of life in South Africa than what we do have here in the United States. Yeah, the United States has opportunities, right? Okay, because most of it, like going to school, it's subsidized, right? Okay, your education and so forth. But in South Africa, you have to pay for everything. That's the difference. You know what I mean? Your education here, you have help. In South Africa, you don't get that. Without a bursary or something like that, you cannot, right? So yeah, you compare, and that's the thing. You start comparing your life in South Africa and you start comparing your life in the United States. And I feel like, you know, that's where the big questions need to be answered. You know what I mean? Like, so right now, I feel that with this book, my grandkids will be able to understand where I come from and what kind of life I had in South Africa. That was the main reason for me actually writing this book, so that, I mean, I don't have any book tours or anything going on yet. I mean, I had a little book reveal in South Africa for my friends and my family and so forth. This was more for a personal self-reflection book. I don't think it'll ever be a #1 bestseller or anything like that. But I thought that I really needed to write down and make sure my grandkids knew exactly where I've come from. So that's what I wanted to share in this book. I think that's what I have.
Thank you so much, Cheryl, and so important.
Yeah.
I think the relationship with your parents or your children or your community and your country. So I want to invite our wonderful friend Beth Carmona, who is here from Brazil. And Beth really wanted to say hello to us and to wish me anyway, a happy birthday. She sent me a lovely message on Facebook and she joined us today and she was like, what are we talking about? I said, we're talking about celebrations. So I'm going to hand over to you, Beth, to say whatever you like, and then together to talk as women about our relationships, about our families, about our fathers, our mothers, whoever we might be talking about, as we celebrate these milestones in our worlds. Welcome, Beth.
Hello, Firdaus. How are you? I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so happy to have this opportunity to celebrate you, to celebrate our friendship. We've been together in a road of activism for a long time. You, much more than me. I really admire your career and your way and your road. And this is why I think it was so important for me to be here, not exactly in person, but almost, as I feel that we have a lot of things in common, that we have a connection and that we have a mission together. So I'm here just for that, to celebrate. I don't have like a book, as I told you. I have some chapters in books. We just finished. I just finished a chapter on television for children in Brazil that will be published in a big book that I think it's a celebration, because Yuval from Israel, who is also a friend for us during the Prisoners, he invited a bunch of people to write about television in their countries, so the history. And I had the pleasure to write the book about the chapter about Brazil, and it took me a while, and he was a great editor, but in the book there are many different countries and people and friends writing about their story. And I think the story of children's television in a country means a lot about the country, means a lot about education, means a lot about people who are behind that activity. So this is something that I'm waiting for to be launched as a book. But of course, I have a lot of productions and animations, live actions, and festivals that I'm still in touch for a long time, even with my 66. I'm not 60, but I'm 66. I'm already a grandmother, and which is a pleasure, wonderful moment in my life, and that's it. That's life. We have to continue, have to move on, and we have to be together with people that we love. And I love you, Firdaus. That's why I am here.
Thank you, Beth. And I want to, for Cheryl, who, as we sit here, Cheryl, we are all in the children's and youth media. So whether we are Brazil, we are very connected. But I wanted you to be part of the Cheryl because you being South African and USA and the relationship of your girls and your grandchildren in terms of the vision that you want to impart. To remind them of what it means to be African, to be South African. And I know that Moniza, Beth, and Nokuthula understand that very much as we talk about identity and we talk about the identity for our children. Really, how do they want to perceive themselves? And so I want to hand over to Moniza. Moniza and Beth are really icons. I've grown up with them. We've known each other for 20 years or more. We've traveled to different countries around the world, and we've always just instantly connected. And I've learned so much from the two of you because you are so experienced in what you do. Nokuthula came yesterday. Tell me about your life, about your work, about your skin, about your hair, about. So now I'm going to say, let's hand this over to Moniza and Beth and Cheryl, and then to you. So let's just give each other that inspiration. What is it that keeps going? It's our activism. It's our belief in something better for all of our children. It's about the connections that we have with each other and therefore with the world. And so I'm handing over you to Moniza. I'm handing over first. Tell us what it is that inspires you, that keeps you going, that makes you not the mama in this family, but really a fellow sister, because your energy is just phenomenal, phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. Firdaus is being over generous with her praise, but the most wonderful thing is that not only have I been to Johannesburg several times, she has been to Pakistan as well. And she has seen Pakistan firsthand. She's seen the Fez festival that we have every year. And she has seen the size of it, the love that people have for that man, and so on and so forth. And that was one of the most wonderful experiences we had of sharing together in each other's homelands and understanding and so on and so forth. What is it that keeps me going? You know, my family, my husband's family says, it's your George genes. My mother was Alice Catherine Ivy George. And they laugh about it and they say, oh, that's a George genes, meaning that's my British genes. On the other hand, you know, it is, obviously it has to do with the fact that one is, in a manner of speaking, if I may say this, belonging to a family which has so much respect, so much credibility, and so much, like you cannot, I mean, when the fact that my younger son, my two sons, and then now my 5 grandchildren, God bless them. When my younger son, he's a bit of a, oh, never mind. But when he was getting up to his antics, when he was younger, I had to tell him, I said, don't forget whose grandson you are. People are looking at you. People are thinking that you are Faz's grandson. Never, never let down that name. Never. So I am so proud to say now, and Firdaus knows it, that he's the one who set up the Faz Foundation, which has now become an international organization that holds this festival. And at the moment, we are setting up a new Faz Ghar, which means the House of Faz, in which we will have more. And this is for you, Firdaus. Inshallah, we will be having a bigger festival next year and the year after that. And perhaps I hope one day all of you would join us here to see what it's all about. So what keeps me going? In a manner of speaking, it is the ideology of my dad. It is the ideology of my mother. My mother was a Marxist, and that is how both of them met. My father was a Marxist. He was not a member of the Communist Party, no. He was a Marxist, and that is why he got the Nobel Peace Prize, and he is still extremely respected and read and studied and printed and published. Very recently, like 2 weeks ago, his complete works of poetry were translated in Russian and launched in Russian in Moscow. And we were I asked our ambassador there and we discussed it. But of course, as the present situation, he said, Madam, it's not safe to travel to Russia. So I said, fine, that's okay. Otherwise, one would have wanted to be there because this was a very prestigious event. So these are what keeps me going. For those, I really don't know. I mean, the fact that I carry a legacy, I carry a name, and the very fact that I think it is that I belong, and I'm sure you people are all younger than me, to a generation that is so focused on making sure that Pakistan is not going to deviate from the important philosophy that was given to us by our founder. And unfortunately, and I say this in front of you, all of you, we in Pakistan at this particular moment, even today, are facing tremendous political challenges, huge political challenges. We've had a government that was overthrown 3-4 months ago. We have a new government that's there, but it's not there. We have no money. We are going to the IMF to go and get. The inflation rate is unbelievable. And so on and so forth. So there is so much panic in Pakistan at this moment politically. And this is the time when you're looking for nothing else, stability of mind, something that gives you peace, something that provides you with a focus, something that keeps you grounded. And that's Faiz's poetry. Faiz does that for everybody. There are so many people who talk to me and tell me that, madam, in moments of stress, in moments of anxiety, in moments of panic, we open that book and we look at any one of his poems and start reading. It appears that it was written today. Today, the meaning is today. And that is what I believe is what is a sign of a genius, and that he's before his time and predicts the time that comes afterwards. So I think, and of course, what keeps me going are my wonderful 5 grandchildren that I just heard Cheryl speak about, and so on and so forth. And the very fact that I want to leave a Pakistan which is in a better state than they can see it right now. I want to give them a country that is stable, a country that is peaceful, a country that there is hope. If there's anything which is unfortunately lacking in Pakistan right now, it's hope, because people are now getting so frustrated and so angry and so panicky and so frightened at where do we see the future. I was told today that, there is the UK has every country. If you look around you, every country has problems. So I try to keep that focus, and I try to get by each day that I go to sleep at night. Before I close my eyes, I said, what did I do today? And I managed to make a checklist to say, okay, that wasn't so bad, that wasn't so bad, that wasn't so bad. And my checklist tonight, my dear Firdaus, my darling, is going to be, I participated in an international call in which there were 3 great women who were talking about their books, and I was one of them as well. So I guess it's that focus that keeps you straight. And I would like to say, Alhamdulillah, I am a practicing Muslim, and that also gives me focus. My religion gives me focus. My faith gives me focus, and the faith in my faith gives me focus. And I take that strength. I draw that strength from my religion and from what I believe in. That's all I have to say. Thank you, Firdaus. Thank you so much. I love you all. I love you, Firdaus. Happy birthday, Salgira Mubarak. Lots of good wishes. We will celebrate. Well, I don't know if I'll celebrate your 70th or not. I don't think I'll be around then, maybe. But I'd like to celebrate your 70th as well. Love you. And hello, Beth.
Absolutely.
I've seen you after so long.
Knox, I hand over to you.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, Firdaus, I feel like I just want to sit and listen. to all these marvelous women that you have introduced me to today. I'm just sitting here, with my notebook and taking notes. And thank you so much, Moniza, and thank you to Beth and to Cheryl, for just letting us into your worlds, and it's incredible. Just, I think, I've always known it, but it always kind of gives me goosebumps whenever I experience it in real times. Just the connections between people, and just how much more similar we are than we are actually different, and of course, in South Africa, I'm really proud to say that, look, South Africa is quite a diverse country. And we keep at it. Moniza was talking about hope, we keep at it. And that's what keeps me going. I have my children who are teenagers now, and it's really, for me, as a mother, obviously, it's very important for me, the world that I create for them, a peaceful world, a prosperous world, a world where they know and understand and appreciate their history, a history, that was in many ways mission impossible, a history which includes, one of the world's greatest icons, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. A history where there was, a huge turnaround, where, millions and millions of South Africans, really had hope in their hearts, and embarked on this journey of a mission impossible, So that keeps me going. That's, I think each and every one of us, we can do our bit to make the world a better place. And Moniza, I would love to one day, attend the Fez Festival. Your father sounds like, an incredible man, and I will definitely go in search of your book and his poetry. Part of my agenda as well was to ensure that my children, know the space called Soweto, where I grew up. They know their grandfather now, my father, as a grand old man, but also to share with them that, I was once their age as well. And Moniza, I just wanted to also show you the picture. You can see the cover of Soweto Tea Party is obviously illustrated, but the picture from which the illustrator was working for the images of Princess and the Father, this is the picture that she was using. So I love this picture as well, of me and Dad, because, yes, he was a freedom fighter, but also an incredibly gentle person. And I felt as well, it's important to celebrate that in a world that really celebrates war, celebrates violence. It's important to tell the children about a different kind of hero, somebody who is a warrior for peace, somebody who is, gentle and kind, and to say, look, even as we are, fighting for a better life, it's important to keep the end in mind, that really what we want is peace and prosperity. As people all around the world, we want the same thing. And as a world, we need to find a way to meet each other at that place of humanity, place of Ubuntu, where we are not moving from a place of fear, but we all understand that we all want the same thing. We want peace and prosperity. And hopefully, we can have, world peace in my lifetime. I hope, yeah, and yeah, so that is why, I mean, I write historical narratives. It's just to inspire current and future generations and say, look, this is where we come from. This is what was achieved, and this is what is still to be achieved. And, you know, each generation will then find and fulfill its own mission. But I think it's important for us, you know, the kind of crossover generations who know what it was like and who know the hope of what we want our lives to become, to tell those stories to our children, to tell those stories to our grandchildren.
Thank you. So important. And the connections. I also just, as I come to you, Cheryl, is to remind us that we were all at high school together, that you come from our community, that we come from the same community, but that you've explored, as you say, across so many oceans. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of your achievements. You make us very, very proud. And I want you, as you close, is really to contextualize, because as you said, you've got development, you've got your you have so many different hats, so many different things that you do. And on the other side of the continent, you surprise us, you encourage us, and you give us hope. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you, thank you. You know, I actually, what inspires me is my grandkids, right? Okay, what I teach them is what I've learned in South Africa. So I have a doctorate, right? And the reason why I have a doctorate, it wasn't because I wanted to inspire to be something. I have a doctorate because of my situation, right? First of all, I'm a woman, okay? Then I'm a woman of color. Then I don't want to walk in and say, oh, you're not educated enough, you don't have the experience. So when I talk to my granddaughter, when I tell her, I say to her, you know what, you can achieve anything you want. Look at me, I have the highest education and I'm just a little old ma, you know, that's what they call me. I'm just a little old ma. So you can do anything you want, right? Okay, that's what inspires me. When I look at her and I say, you know what, you can, I mean, she asked me, can I be this? Can I be this? I said, you can be anything you want. You can even be a hairdresser if you want, right? But you have to inspire to whatever you like. Don't let anything stop you, because I believe that my grandkids are the ones that we are setting them up for the next generation to take over, and hopefully their outlook on life is not going to be like what we experienced. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be more broader. It's going to be more welcoming of every single person in this whole world, regardless of race, creed, color. And I think at that point, it doesn't really matter. We all are human beings. And that's what inspires me. That's what I'm trying to teach them, because I mean, I came from one continent. I'm in another country right now. I mean, thousands of miles, and they can see that, you know what, you can do anything you want. And that's what inspires me. And that's what drives me, you know what I mean, to do better. I mean, I'm 61 years old. I work. I don't intend to ever retire. They have to lock the doors. My company has to lock the doors. I'm writing a book. I mean, you know, that's what inspires me. That's what my grandkids see. They're like, oh, wow, you can do this. And that's what I love. I love to lead by example. I like to actually fill their little minds with all of what they can achieve. That's what inspires me. That's all I have for now.
Yeah, and it's a lot.
I mean, yeah, I feel like, you know, I'm so, like, I mean, when Firdaus sent me the invitation, I was like, wow, you know, I'm just a first-time author, okay? I just published this book because it was self-satisfaction for me, what I wanted to achieve. But after listening to everyone in the room, I'm like, you guys are so learned. You have so much more experience. You're famous. I mean, it is so inspiring to be around you guys. I mean, I'm just like, I feel like I'm a little old me amongst all these directors, CFOs, you know what I mean? You're just more experienced, you know?
Well, I don't see Firdaus, but maybe I have to say now what inspired me. So first of all, it was pleasure to be here. Moniza, even if we didn't had the opportunity to go deeper in conversation and to know more about each other, it seems to me that we know each other for a long time. And we are always in the same boat. We are always doing things. So I follow you and I know what you're doing, and that's the importance. And what inspires me, it's actually something that I'm still have my little child inside me. And this is very good. As a child, I used to be a little bit shy, a little bit quiet. But I was always observing, and from the time I grew up, I think I had the opportunities to use a lot of my observations and things that I found when I was a child and put in practice. And I'm still have my little child with me, and I'm always try to think or to be in the shoes of a child when I do my productions, when I do my festivals, when I do everything I have to do, or I plan to do related to the childhood. When I hear Moniza talking about Pakistan, I would say that Brazil is like in the same picture. We are really in one of the worst moments of the country. We had this guy who is in charge, who is really an evil. It's like something that we never expect. We came from a generation that was happy to fight, happy to go for a better country or to a better things for the people, for the population. But as we see, this is not enough. So we are still fighting. And when I remember the whole generations of the end of the 60s, and I see what is happening today, in some sense, this generation has a lot to do as the 60s generation had, because we were part of a generation that was that could do the protests, that could say no to many things, to the war, to so many things. And in the end, we see it was not enough. It come like 40, 45 years, and we see things that we never imagined we could happen again. So the cycle is coming back, and I'm happy to be updated enough to inspire the next generations about the big work they have to do. So I'm happy to teach, I'm happy to share my knowledge, I'm happy to have in my team young people that could go ahead and do in another way, but more or less the same mission that I established 20, 25 years ago. And in the other hand, I see there's some evolution, because talking about the media, we are facing the whole theme and subject of diversity, which is gaining some space. I think even there's still a lot to do. We could see, including inside the market, some feeling to talk about diversity. to talk about equality, this is something that will change the world. And if we work on media for children, this is exactly what we have to do. We have, on the basis of the shows, on the basis of whatever piece we are doing, we never forget about all these situations and the facts that are happening today. So I just came from the Prisoners Festival, and we could feel that there are many parts of the world and many producers that are doing really responsible programs for children. And I'm happy to come back and to share and to inspire not only my team, but also other students or people that would like to join and start their work in media for children. So I'm happy to have my son together. And as Moniza said, I also have someone that will continue or even changing what we are doing. And this is, I think, what moves us. The world is always changed, the world is always struggling, and we are here to face it and to fight and to promote things that could really make a better world. So this is our goal. And that's a kind of celebration that we are doing together here. All we women of fighting for a better world.
Well, I want to thank you all for tonight. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your celebrations. Mwah! F is for freedom. What is F?
F.
You.
Mhm.
Friendship. Fun.
F is for fun.
Bye
Yeah.
bye.
F is for fun. Bye.
Thank
You are lovely.
Bye-bye.
I like
Thank
your
you
hair.
so
You're
much.
lovely.